Hey, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Darian Wiriokusumo with a student ID of 5017241023 from Class B of Electromagnetic Exploration. And today I will be presenting my review of a journal article titled An Approach for Easy Detection of Buried FRP Composite or Non-Metallic Pipelines Using Ground-Penetrating Radar. So this presentation will cover over 4 sections: the background of problem, through then methodology, results and discussion, ending with a few conclusions from myself. So moving on into the background of problem, and the main problem here is that steel pipelines corrode in the oil and gas industry, which can cause oil spills, explosions, and fatalities. And here GFRP and PVC pipelines. PVC pipes solve corrosion but become invisible to GPR when we do GPR exploration. And why these materials are transparent? Because PVC and GFRP are electromagnetically transparent, so the GPR signals can pass through um, without producing a reflection. And there is a traditional workaround, which is placing metallic tracer wires alongside the pipes, but this also fails, as mentioned in the article, because those wires corrode and break within a few decades, and well before the pipeline itself reaches the end of its expected life service of over 50 years usually. And this study has four objectives. First, to test surface overlays to boost dielectric contrast for GPR detection. Second, evaluate 3 pipe sizes at 3 burial depths across varying soil moisture. Third, compare 200, 400, and 900 MHz antenna performance. And lastly, produce field deployable detection guidelines. So yeah, that's for the background problem. Moving on. This experiment was conducted at West Virginia University, where the subsurface consisted of about 0.3 meters of silt loam at the surface and underlain by clay down to 1.22 meters. And here, and one of the most signal attenuating soil conditions for GPR, which is clay, and shown in this figure also, where here they used 200, 400, and 900 megahertz of antenna frequency. Moving on into the pipe configuration. And here, to make non-metallic pipes detectable, the study tested 5 different overlay configurations, pipe configurations, as shown here. And options A through D apply carbon fabric or aluminum foil around the pipe in either rings or strip form. And here, option E, they coat the pipe with carbon nanoparticles mixed into the resin. And here is the pipe layout for the testing method, where here shown there are 3 long trenches with the different pipe configurations. Moving on, here, figure 4 illustrates how GPR signal propagates from the transmitter down to the soil. A basic theory of GPR exploration, and it reflects off the buried pipe and returns to the receiver. And here the key equation governing the strength of that reflection is the reflection coefficient. So here, and moving on to the data processing chain. First, they did raw B-scan acquisition, longitudinal and also transversely. And then they did a soil dielectric calibration, then band pass filtering, applying low pass and also high pass per antenna, and then they did a background noise removal, and then they did a peak extraction, which retains the max amplitude. So there would be no zero low peaks, there would be no low peaks. And lastly, they did a depth estimation via two-way travel time times by wave velocity. That's it for the theory and workflow. Okay, here are the results. So looking at the results, the B scan up here shows a clear visual contrast between pipe configurations, where the brighter, more prominent bands correspond to pipes with conductive overlays, while the unwrapped PVC and GFRE pipes, uh, unwrapped here, uh, produces a very faint, barely visible returns. And here, the A scan, the, the amplitude comparison down here, quantifies this as the CFRP strip configuration delivered up to 4.5 times the signal amplitude compared to a bare unwrapped PVC pipe. And on average, a 2 times boost was recorded, seen here, across all tested configurations, which is an important additional finding. That is the polarity reversal on wrapped pipes, where the reflected signal phase inverts compared to unwrapped pipes, because the conductive overlay here imposes a higher electromagnetic impedance than the surrounding soil. So here it flips the sign of the reflection coefficient. And this polarity flip can actually serve as a diagnostic indicator that a conductive overlay is present, which I found in the article. Okay, here is the antenna frequency and also the penetration depth, where dataset 1 is dry, 2 is spring, and 3 is spring, and 2 is wet. And figure 7 here, it shows how skin depth, which represent the effective penetration range, drops sharply as antenna frequency increases, and the drier soil conditions consistently produce greater penetration depth, shown by dataset 1 sitting highest on the chart. And in terms of antenna performance, the 200 megahertz one was the only frequency capable of reaching depths up to 1.22 meters and beyond in these wet clay dominant conditions, making it the most recommended frequency for similar field surveys. And for the 400 megahertz, it reaches a shallow depth of only 0.61 meters. And lastly, 900 megahertz, it fails to provide adequate penetration, only reaching at about less than 0.3 meters. Okay, moving on into the technicality and conclusions. And to summarize, the study's key strengths were its use of real field burial conditions across 3 seasonal moisture datasets, its quantitative amplitude validation, and the rigorous skin depth modeling using my scattering theory, as the main gaps are the absence of FK migration and time gain processing, and the use of only a single soil type and a maximum tested depth of 1.22 meters. This is relatively low for oil and gas industry standards. So this is like a backyard, not really a backyard, but somewhat a backyard experiment compared to real world industry applications. And here I derived a few conclusions from this article. First, the CFRP strip is the best, as carbon fiber reinforced polymer strips are the best for overlay, providing up to a 4.5 times amplitude boost and remaining durable for and it is durable for decades. Second, the 200 megahertz antenna frequency that we mentioned before. This is the only viable frequency that successfully reaches depths greater than 0.61 meters in wet soil conditions. And here we can they concluded that strips are more effective than rings, as continuous strips heavily outperform discrete rings, as a continuous reflector is critical for finding pipes during transfer scans. And a correlation here is that if we engineer the target, we need to engineer the target, not just the processing. To achieve visibility, we need to rely on designing the pipes with intentional dielectric contrast. That's it for me. I think I forgot to add a thank you slide. That's it for me, and I apologize if there are any mistakes or anything that there is that may be unwelcoming or bad. And thank you for watching my video. That's it for me.